Why does a dismissive avoidant come back into your life? Let's talk about it, and at the end of this video, I'll tell you how you can securely respond when they do come back. If you're new to attachment theory, there's 4 main attachment styles that we cover. There is only one secure attachment style, as you can see here, and that's the secure attachment style. The rest of them are insecure. The anxious preoccupied is preoccupied with a relationship or the idea of a relationship, so they struggle with independence. The dismissive avoidant is hyper independent, so they fear closeness and intimacy. They want these things, but they also fear them. And the fearful avoidant is a mix of both anxious and dismissive. That's why this is the disorganized attachment style. And today we're mostly going to be covering the dismissive avoidant and why they might come back to a relationship after breakup. Now, an avoidant unfortunately did not develop deep emotional bonds with their caregivers, so their caregivers were emotionally distant. Now, I'm not saying that their caregivers did not love them or support them. Their caregivers may have given them the essentials of living, a good education, financial support, but their caregivers did not give them emotional connection. They saw expressing emotions and vulnerability as a weakness. So if the child expressed emotional needs and vulnerability, then the caregiver usually shut them down, right? Told them to suck it up, taught them that emotions are a sign of weakness, and didn't give them the emotional support that a child needs. So the child had to learn to rely on themselves for emotional processing. They couldn't express their emotions to their caregivers, so they're sure not going to express them to anyone else. And this conditioning carries over into adulthood, okay? They become hyper independent. They see emotions and vulnerability as a sign of weakness, and the dismissive avoidant is born. Now, the anxious preoccupied is so vulnerable. They are so in touch with their emotions. They're so expressive with their emotions, and we'll talk about why in another video. But the anxious preoccupied is so open-hearted, and when the avoidant sees this, they're amazed by it, okay? They think, how can someone be so open-hearted with their emotions? So the avoidant is so drawn into this because it's something that they never got to experience in their upbringing. And the avoidant is very much enjoys this at first. They enjoy all this emotional expression, emotional availability, until it becomes too much for them, right? The avoidant remembers suddenly or slowly, but the avoidant remembers that emotions, vulnerability, connection, these are weaknesses, and they're dangerous. So it becomes too much for the avoidant, and the avoidant shuts down and leaves. They see this. It becomes overwhelming for them. So they see all these emotions and vulnerability, and they think, oh, this is dangerous. No, this is too much for me. I'll shut down and leave the relationship. Okay, they can't handle these emotions. It's too much for them, and too many fears are being triggered. The anxious, of course, after a breakup, the anxious will chase and beg and try to save the relationship, but the avoidant is done. They're out. Until the avoidant has had enough time that they start feeling lonely again. And now they want to come back to that relationship, right? All that validation, all that emotional abundance that their anxious ex was giving them, they're starting to miss that. But of course, the avoidant can't just reach out to their anxious ex, because to reach out is to be vulnerable, and avoidants don't do vulnerable, because to them, again, it's a sign of weakness. Okay, to reach out to someone and say, hey, I miss you, I'd like to reconnect, that is vulnerability. So if they do come back, it's not going to be all in, right? It's going to be very indirect and very subtle. Okay, it's more so that the avoidant is, they want to be sure that their anxious ex is still around as an option. So they'll be very subtle, very vague, right? They might like a post. They might watch your story on Instagram. In some cases, they may message you directly, but it'll be a very vague message. But they're not just going to come back and say, hey, I miss you. Let's reconnect. I really miss what we had. No, they're not going to do that. They're just checking to see if you're still around as an option. So that's why the avoidant may come back after a breakup, right? Because they have this delayed realization. Okay, after enough time passes of having no contact with their ex, their fears begin to settle down, and once those fears are gone, they can start to process the emotions, the feelings from that relationship, and they start missing you because they start feeling lonely. Because dismissive avoidants are human too. Now, I know social media paints them to be these psychopaths with no emotions and no empathy, but no, avoidants have emotions, okay? They just weren't taught to express them. They don't know how to be vulnerable. They don't know how to show empathy. They just don't know how to do that. It wasn't taught to them in their upbringing. So they just shut down and leave. And remember, avoidants are different from narcissists. And I talk about this in another video. But yes, avoidants have emotions. They get lonely. They miss you. And they may try to ease their way back into your life. So how would a secure person respond to this? Okay, when an avoidant X tries to ease their way back into your life, or rather reel you back in, how would a secure person respond? Well, first of all, a secure person usually doesn't go for avoidance, okay? When they sense that their partner is avoidant, the secure person usually just walks away from that, okay? Because, they don't really go for avoidance. But in this situation, here's how a secure person could respond. Okay, if the avoidant reaches out indirectly, like maybe they like a post on Instagram or they watch your story, right? If they reach out indirectly, this is bait. Okay, the avoidant is putting out bait to see if you'll take it, to see if you'll be the one to reach out directly, right? The avoidant doesn't want to reach out directly, so they don't want to be vulnerable, so they're trying to bait you into doing so. Now, a secure person will not take that bait. Right? A secure person will continue on with their own life. Okay, a secure person doesn't need to reach out directly. They're okay with the breakup. They're fine with their own life. Okay, so they're not even going to entertain that, right? They see right through it. They're not even going to entertain that. Now, if the avoidant wants to be vulnerable and reach out directly and express interest in reconnecting after they're the ones who left, then they have the option to do so. And a secure person is aware of this. So a secure person won't take that indirect bait, right? They won't even entertain that, those breadcrumbs, right? They won't even entertain that. They're going to be fine with their own life, being independent, living on their own. Now, if the avoidant actually does show some vulnerability and reaches out directly, how does a secure person respond? Well, the secure person will notice the vulnerability, and if the secure person still has feelings and wants to revisit that relationship, then they will reward that vulnerability with safety, okay? So they won't go all in and say, let's get back together tonight, it's going to be great. No, of course not. But they will reward the avoidance vulnerability with safety, okay? And they'll take things slow. They'll talk, they'll have an adult conversation while maintaining their boundaries. Again, that's if the secure person still has feelings. Now, if they don't, then the secure person is done, right? Again, they've moved on. They won't even entertain their avoidant X in these games, these breadcrumbs, these indirect messages. They won't even entertain that, okay? They'll just tell their ex, listen, you broke up with me. I've moved on. I wish you the best, right? So that's how a secure person would respond in these situations. I hope this video helps. I hope I brought some good into your life today. If so, please like and subscribe. Please continue to share your stories and your experiences in the comments. Let's get the discussion going. And if you think this video might help somebody, please share it with them. Until next time, you take care. I'll see you in the next.